What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Sports Nerds. Our first episode, I think, since the Super Bowl celebration week that we had on here. Um, has it really been that long?
I'm not sure. I think we had one in between, but
Okay,
I'm not
yeah, we did
100%
one for
sure.
free agency. I remember
Yeah.
that, the first week of free agency. But man, it's been a little bit busy schedules, along with March Madness kind of taking up most of our time, and really, we of course this just happens to be one of the most craziest off seasons in recent memory. And I mean, Dawson, how are we feeling? I mean, I think the NFL draft, if I remember right, if this doesn't show how off I am on my schedule with things, is next week. It's not 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks.
Okay, well, I I can't wait to see what the Cardinals do in 2 weeks um, to mess up their franchise per usual. But uh, I mean, you want to just get right into your mock draft, or do you have anything about free agency that you want to talk about,
Uh,
or just in
yeah.
general?
Well, I don't think we've had an episode since Jason Kelsey officially announced retirement or Aaron Donald officially announcing retirement. Both all first ballot Hall of Famers that are well deserved of all their accolades and stuff. But that leaves holes for both of those teams at those respective positions, with the Rams in interior D line and the Eagles with interior O line. But yeah, it's been one of the craziest off seasons that I can remember in quite some time. Um, yeah, it's kind of made this transition of not having any football a little bit easier.
What are you talking about? The UFL's going on. You haven't been watching the
My
UFL?
bad, my bad, my bad.
Come on. Yeah, it's been crazy. Jason Kelsey and Aaron Donald announcing their retirement. Like you mentioned, two first ballot Hall of Famers. One of them on the offensive line, one of them on the defensive line. So, but I'm interested to see. I don't think he will, but like I know there was rumors like early on after Saquon signed with the Eagles on whether or not Kelsey would come back, but I think that ship has sailed for sure. And either way, what a career for him. Not even just on the field, off the field, he's one of the most noticeable, biggest personalities we've ever seen in football, which is kind of crazy to think about when you look at the position he plays. Because his position, the offensive line, they kind of get forgot about a little bit. When in reality, from my experience on social media and just in general, the offensive line people they got some personalities.
I think if you can group two positions right there with great personalities, offensive line and then tight ends, because we see what George Kittle does week to week, and it's NFL is always posting something about how George Kittle is just making the defense look silly. In the Super Bowl, the funniest moment I think was when he's blocking George Karlaftis, and he's blocking him on the outside, and he says, "Hey George," and that's the play of the fumble from McCaffrey, and then they both realize, "Oh shoot, ball's out," so they both die. I think it's just so funny when they post clips of like offensive linemen talking trash, and especially the tight ends talking trash to one another.
Yeah, and Aaron Donald, I mean, what can you say? Like, what can't you say about his career? He's done pretty much everything. Unbelievable defensive lineman. I mean, it seemed like every other year he was either ranked number one or number two in the NFL's top 100 players heading into the season. Two first ballot Hall of Famers, like we mentioned, retiring from the game. Another thing that I feel like not a lot of people, it caught a lot of attention early on in the process of off season and everything because they go through their league meetings, try to figure out new and different ways to change the game a little bit. One of those things I think that they definitely emphasized this year was the changing of the kickoff rules, which, I mean, here's a little illustration here that we have that I found on Twitter of the new kickoff rules, basically adopting from the XFL/UFL rules where pretty much everybody is like lined up together. And the whole purpose of it is to increase kickoff returns because I think not even like 25% of the kickoffs this year were returned. And which is interesting because you think back 10 years ago, they were trying to even think about getting rid of them in general because of the safety issues. But similar to the XFL rules, where the players can't leave in that little neutral zone or that setup line until after the receiver catches it. After that, it's pretty much a normal kick return. Dawson, what are your thoughts on this? I know it's always weird to get like a major change like this in the NFL because you're so used to watching it one way, and even though a different league saw success in it, it might not always be the best move. But what do you think about this new kickoff return rule?
Yeah, so it has been a couple weeks since I really did a deep dive on this, but if correct me if I'm wrong, if the kicking team just boots it straight out of the end zone, isn't it just start on the 35 or the 40? Isn't there a huge penalty this year for kicking it straight out of the end zone?
Ooh, I actually don't remember that for sure. I would have to look into that, but that sounds about right because I think that was a rule in the UFL, and hence why balls were returned more.
Right, and if the ball lands in the landing zone, the return team has to take it out no matter what. I'm trying to remember all the rules. I like the rule a lot. Like you said, it's going to promote more kickoffs, which is kind of a forgotten part about the game now. I mean, Devin Hester really made it famous with the kickoff return in the Super Bowl. We just don't really see that anymore. We'll occasionally see a 100-yard kick return touchdown, but I think this is just going to promote more teams coming up with innovative ways to return the ball. Maybe some laterals, maybe some handoffs in the backfield. So I really like it. The one rule I don't like, I'm sure we'll touch on in a second. I don't like the onside kick rule, how they changed it. I don't like that you have to announce to the referees and the opposing team when you're doing an onside.
So no
Because
more
that
Pat
it
McAfee specials.
yeah, it eliminate like the was it Saints Colts in the Super Bowl, the surprise onside to start the second half. It eliminates those plays, which I feel like you have to be ready at all times for a surprise onside kick. I mean, if not, I feel like that's just bad preparation on the other team
Yep,
if you're not at least aware of it
I don't like
happening.
that rule, and that rule either.
So I feel like that kind of takes like the surprise element out on kickoff, which is a little lame in my opinion. But overall, just the kickoff rule with where the alignment, I really like this rule. I think it's going to promote more kickoffs. And I think it penalizes teams as it should for just kicking it straight out of the end zone. It's going to require some strategy of where you kick it on the field and
Mhm.
which returner you kick it to and blocking and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I get the new rule for the onside kick thing because of the new format of how kickoff returns are handled anyways. Um, it makes me wonder how close we are to that 4th down and 15, 4th down and 20 rule to becoming a, actual staple in the NFL or actually being used. I don't know if do they use the preseason to test out rules? Have you ever noticed that? I don't think they have that I can remember, at least big rule changes that they thought about doing, but I feel like that should be something they should try in the preseason.
No, I agree. I feel like that'd be a good testing spot for the NFL, and then they can make their official ruling week or two after the preseason ends, and like, hey, do we think this is going to be a valuable rule that we can implement, and it's really going to impact the game? But I don't know. I overall really like the rule change with the kickoff. I just the onside kick one is just that one's frustrating for me because
Yeah.
again eliminates the play like what Pat McAfee used to do. What happened in the Saints Colts Super Bowl, the surprise onsides.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I mean, are you assuming that this will lead to that 4th down 15, whatever that option is instead of kicking on that onside kick in the 4th quarter. Are you in favor of that rule? Because I mean, for you being a Chiefs fan, I feel like that's something that you would love to have every single time because Mahomes is going to be able to find a way to get you guys 15 yards pretty much every play. But I don't know. I'm not. I don't know if I am 100% on board with that ever happening in the NFL. I just don't know if I like the idea of that kind of play determining. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't really have a great opinion either way. It would be cool if like they had a 4th and 15 where it's like, hey, teams down 2 scores, they just scored a touchdown. Now they can get the ball back and really keep momentum on their offense. They can elect to go for a 4th and 15 instead of an onside. I think it's cool in that aspect. But man, that makes just leads that much more unsafe. Meaning, if a team's got a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter against a team like the Bills, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Cowboys, any of those teams that have high power offenses, man, is it going to result to a lot of choked leads in the fourth quarter. And I think now if they start putting restrictions on, like, hey, you can only do this once in the fourth quarter, or hey, you can only do this once in the game, overtime included, then I think the rule could be implemented better. But if they don't have any handicaps on it where you can use it as many times as you want, that's when I think the NFL games could get really high scoring really fast, which I think is what the NFL wants at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'm looking up the rules of the UFL, and I think they pretty much is just the fourth quarter, if I remember right, that they can use that rule. And I mean, that's fair. I almost would make it even more stricter in the NFL and make it like less than 5 minutes in the fourth quarter is when you can use that rule. Um, it'd be interesting to have it. It makes some teams definitely more intimidating to play against if you're down, which is funny because, one of the teams that I would think about, they find a way to come back anyways. It doesn't matter what lead it is. It seems like the Chiefs always find a way to win a game, no matter the situation or time on the clock. I mean, heck, you guys did 13 seconds against the Bills? That's all it took. So yeah, some interesting rule changes in the NFL. I mean, I'm not against them. I think they're some decent ones. The onside kick one sucks because, it's something that we kind of grew up on, but at the same time, it's not really possible with the new setup at the kickoff anyway. So it makes sense why they have to announce that they're going to do an onside kick. We'll see how that actually works out. Onside kicks aren't really that successful anyways now, which I mean is why the surprise onside kicks were so special in the NFL, but it is what it is.
I think it was like less than 10% successful this year. Maybe I'll pull up the exact stat later on in the show, but I think it was less than 10%, and it's been like going down every single year ever since they introduced where you can't overload one side of the field when you're doing an onside. You can't put 6 or 7 guys on one side. The numbers have just plummeted over the last 10 years.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been a crazy, crazy offseason, just not even counting the rule changes, but some of the player movements. I mean, we knew that Justin Fields' days in Chicago was probably numbered. Did not expect him to go to the Steelers. Do we
not
even
after they
talk
got
about
Russ.
Russell Wilson? I don't
Not
even know
after.
if we,
I think we touched on it for like maybe 30 seconds, but
because we didn't think it was a major deal. But now
no.
that they went and got Justin Fields right after it, they're like, okay.
I don't know what the Steelers are doing, in my opinion. I feel like once you have one of those guys, you got to stick and pick with them. I personally would start Justin because I feel like Justin still has more upside at this point in his career. But the thing with Russ is I know people want to poo-poo on his year last year. He didn't have a terrible year, as people are indicating. He had 26 touchdowns. I think only 6 picks or fewer than that. He had an okay year with Denver. It's just that whole situation was bad for him, so that he kind of took the fall. He could still be a productive quarterback, I believe. I think he's obviously on the back end of his career. But I don't know. I feel like the Steelers are going to end up starting Russ the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, and then by week 7 or 8, we're going to have a quarterback controversy of, Russ is struggling. Let's put Justin in. And the Steelers are still going to find a way to win 8 or 9 games and not have a losing season.
That's just what they do.
Yeah.
If they can find a way to get a winning record with some of the teams that they've had in the last couple seasons, if they find a way to be below 500 with Russ or Justin Fields, depending on who finishes or who plays the most amount of snaps this year, then it's time to push the panic button for that franchise, because there's no way that they shouldn't be at least 500 with this, at least one of the quarterbacks playing majority of the snaps. But that's not the only move that the Bears made. They went and got a veteran receiver in Keenan Allen, and I tell you what, assuming that Caleb Williams is going to get drafted there, the Bears are setting themselves up for a bright future.
I think the Bears are going to try to duplicate what the Texans did last year with Stroud and just surround him with as many weapons as possible. And I don't know. I believe CJ we thought he was okay coming out of college. I can't imagine what scouts have him Caleb Williams at. And if Caleb is even half the player that scouts are projecting him to be his first year, I think there's no reason why the Bears shouldn't win 10 or 11 games and compete for second or third in that division and possibly a wild card spot, which is kind of like the Texans did.
Well, and let's be honest, the NFC North, I still think is pretty open. I get that Detroit had a good year last year. The Packers have established that Love is a decent quarterback. Vikings obviously have moved on from Kirk Cousins, so we'll see what they do. I think you have the Vikings making an interesting move in your mock draft that we'll get to here in a sec. But so, like you mentioned, the Texans, if you put gasoline on this fire with the Bears, they could potentially compete to win the division year one. I know that might be a stretch, but I'm not kidding about that.
No, I don't think so at all. I think Vegas has the Bears win total set at like 8.5 or 7.5. I think that is the easiest. We don't talk a lot of betting on the show, but I watch like the win totals just because I'm curious sometimes
Yep.
what like the general public thinks. And when they had Chicago set at 8.5, I'm like, well, they added all these weapons. They have the first pick in the draft, which they're going to take Caleb. They have the ninth pick, which they can either take best defensive player available. They can take the third best receiver. They can take O-line. They can trade that pick and get more assets. I feel like there's no reason Chicago shouldn't win at least 10 games next year.
This is the best position I feel like the Bears have been in since that Super Bowl run.
Yeah. I think this is the best position a number one overall pick has come into it ever.
Yeah.
Because usually when you think of a number one overall pick, they're going like Carolina last year. Carolina the year before won like 6 or 7 games, but Carolina last year was the worst team in the NFL by a mile. Well, the Bears actually played really well after the trade deadline. They had a top 10 defense. They had some issues on offense, but it looks like they resolved it. They brought in DeAndre Swift. They brought in Keenan Allen. They still have DJ Moore. They have Cole Kmet. They have some decent weapons on that side of the ball. All it takes is, because you know the first pick's going to be Caleb. I think that's pretty much set in stone. As long as you can nail the ninth pick and either get a Rome Odunze, you can either get a Dallas Turner or some guy like that. I feel like the Bears could easily win the division this year.
It's crazy to even think about that because it seems like last couple years we feel like they're just a mess and there's no way they're ever going to fix it. And I, for one, wanted to see whether or not Justin Fields could actually pan out in Chicago, obviously. But this move, this was the right move. Let's be honest. As much as I actually think Justin Fields is a decent quarterback. Caleb Williams, it's one of those things where, similar to Arizona with Kyler, when Kyler was available for the number one pick. Different situation, though. Josh Rosen was not good whatsoever, and Justin Fields is actually a decent quarterback. But first overall pick, you can't not take that quarterback because you don't. Granted, Cardinals have realized Kyler is not necessarily an MVP candidate, which, I mean, injuries kind of derailed that a little bit, but you can't not take Caleb Williams in this situation with how high scouts are on him. He's one of the most popular quarterbacks coming into an NFL draft that I can remember. I mean, there's been popular quarterbacks in the past. You know, Baker was popular, Kyler was popular, but none of them were like, this guy is a future MVP right away. Like, and that's how the media at least is promoting him. And I mean, I don't see why he can't. So it was the right move for Chicago.
Right. I think Caleb Williams is the most hyped up prospect since Andrew Luck.
Yep.
And Andrew Luck had one of the best rookie seasons ever by a quarterback. Led his team to, I believe, an 11-win season, made the playoffs his rookie year, which is crazy impressive considering how bad that Colts team was the previous year. But I think the Bears are going to shock a lot of people this year. And I think Caleb Williams could have a season like C.J. Stroud did last year, where he throws for 4,000 yards, where he has almost 30 touchdowns. Yeah, he's probably going to have a lot of turnovers, just because all rookie quarterbacks are going to have a lot of turnovers, whether it's picks or fumbles. But those are the growing pains that you're going to have with a guy like this good, and that he can eventually become an MVP-level quarterback.
Yeah. And, I mean, right now, if the season started tomorrow and I knew that Caleb was going to be on that team, I probably would actually lean towards the Bears actually being a surprise. Not necessarily it would be a surprise, but like actually kind of lean towards them actually winning the division because I don't know. I feel like there might be a hangover season for the Lions. I don't know why. I just have that feeling, and maybe that's just because I'm used to seeing that in both the NFL and the NBA. I mean, look at the Sacramento Kings this year in the NBA, kind of having a hangover season versus what they were the year before.
Makes me sad.
And it's team. whether or not people want to accept that or not, it's just the way it is, you know. But you mentioned C.J. Stroud and the Texans, and they made a big move to get another star weapon for C.J. Stroud getting digs from Buffalo. What did you think about the move? What is next for Buffalo? Buffalo is in a weird situation because what was it? no, I don't think last year many people were high on them, but even 2 years ago, it was like this team is legit for the next couple years. If they don't have a Super Bowl, if Josh doesn't win an MVP, there's no way that doesn't happen. And here we are, and I don't think they're going to be good next year.
They'll be okay because of how great Josh Allen is. I hate the argument that Stephon Diggs made Josh Allen. Did
Oh,
Stephon
I
Diggs?
don't believe that, but like it helps for sure.
Yeah, it helped him out a lot. But I think Josh is at the point now where you could put a bunch of okay receivers around him and he's going to thrive. What's not? I'll start with the Bills and I'll go to the Texans. Man, if you're a Bills fan, this has got to be rough last few years. The last 2 years you've lost in the divisional round to the eventual. You lost to the Bengals 2 years ago, lost to the Chiefs this past year, and you're like, we're this close. We're this close. We just got to make one more move. And then you look at your finances, you look at the salary cap, and it's like, oh, we can't pay anyone this year. We're going to have to cut everyone.
Yep.
I think the stat is they had, so teams have team captains. And it's like kind of their badge of honor players that they walk out into the middle of the field. They have a C on their chest. They have 8 of them usually. I think the Bills only have 2 left on their team after the free agency. They lost Jordan Poyer to Miami. Who knows what Von Miller is going to be next year? Micah Hyde's still a free agent. We don't know if he's going to be back in Buffalo. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is gone. Like, there's a lot of questions surrounding Buffalo. I still think that they'll finish probably second or third in that division, but they got some real issues. And with the Texans, I mean,
they're going to be so fun to watch.
Home run move. And the thing that I like the most is, I don't know if you saw, but they actually voided the last 3 years of Diggs' contract.
Oh,
meaning
okay.
he's on a 1-year deal. Meaning there should be, like, it's a prove it deal, because the Texans are like, yeah, if it doesn't go well, he's off our salary cap after next year. We can wash our hands and move on. If he does well, we still have CJ on a rookie deal. We can sign him to a pretty large extension for 3 or 4 years. So I think it's a win-win move for Stephon Diggs and the Texans. Not so much for the Bills. I think the Bills kind of took the sour end of it. And I think the Bills still lost cap space in all this. I think the Bills are still carrying a dead cap for Stephon Diggs for this year and next year.
How does that happen, man? That's just, and you look at the the Texans. They won their division last year, and you had a rookie quarterback doing that. Granted, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars will have a little bit of a bounce back year. We both were high on Trevor Lawrence last year. Hopefully, he can get back. And I mean, injuries didn't help that team whatsoever. But Tennessee,
watch out for the Titans.
Tennessee is a team to look at. What are your thoughts on Tennessee? You know, they did move on from King Henry, which, I mean, heck of a run there. And he's in Baltimore, which we can talk a little bit about how big of an impact that will be for Lamar Jackson. But what are your thoughts on the Titans right now that the era of Derrick Henry is over?
Titans were some of the biggest spenders in free agency. We saw them hand out that huge deal to Calvin Ridley. But now they got legitimate receivers for Will Levis. I think they're bought in with Will Levis. He had some good flashes last year. They have DeAndre Hopkins now. They have Calvin Ridley. They have Treylon Burks, who knows what Treylon Burks really is anymore. First rounder from a couple years ago. But I still feel like the Titans can still be really good. Obviously, like, lost King Henry. That's going to suck. That's a Titan lifer, in my opinion.
Yep.
His number's going to be retired for the Titans for everything he's done for him. But I really like what the Titans have done. I'm going to be honest. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed, which hurts my heart. Super Bowl champion L'Jarius Sneed. But I really like the moves that the Titans are making. But this only makes sense if they really bought into Will Levis, which I do believe they are.
Yeah, it seems like they are buying into him. I mean, if they're not, they're really good at faking it and lying about it. Baltimore adds, obviously, Derrick Henry, and I think that was a great acquisition for a team that is desperately looking for, because they have the talent to win. It's just that they're desperately looking for that next level to actually compete for a Super Bowl, because everybody talks about them as potential Super Bowl contenders, but they're never a legit contender, I feel like, except for maybe that 2 week span in December when they were just they destroyed the 49ers, and everybody was like, oh, that was a statement win. And then playoffs come around, and really, one of the reasons they lost that game against the Chiefs was their stupid outside of the play decision making, where they were committing personal fouls over and over again. So, what are your thoughts on the move? I think it's a great move for them. I think it moves them up not right next to Kansas City, because I think Kansas City is on a level of their own still in the AFC, but it gets them probably close to that second spot for sure.
Yeah, I really like the moves that Baltimore's made this offseason. I know they lost some of their tackles. They lost Morgan Moses to the Jets, which anytime you lose an offensive tackle, it's going to be a struggle to find a replacement because there's just not a lot of very good offensive tackles in the league anymore. So they're going to have to address that in the draft, or if they sign someone through free agency. But they were able to keep a lot of their guys back. They franchise tagged Justin Madubuike, who played really well last year. I think he had 13 or 14 sacks, which is really good for Baltimore. The real question is there's this narrative now that can Lamar really perform in the playoffs when like the stakes are high? I mean, we saw what happened this past year against the Chiefs, and he kind of wet the bed. I'm gonna be like, I know that Chiefs defense was number 2, and that was a formidable defense, but there's some weaknesses in that Chiefs defense that the Ravens really weren't able to exploit.
Well, they had opportunities.
Exactly. And the fact that this was the down year for the Chiefs offense and the Ravens defense couldn't really force any turnovers, I don't think, unless my memory is serving me wrong, is kind of glaring. But I don't know. I still like Baltimore a lot. I'm not going to pick them to make the Super Bowl. I'll just flat out say it. But I still really like what their team's doing. I'm curious to see what they'll do in the draft. Trying to remember who I even have them taking in the draft. Okay.
And we can look at that in a second here.
Yeah. But I don't know. I still really like Baltimore. Love the moves they've made this offseason. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to can Lamar Jackson really deliver in the playoffs? Because he had a great regular season last year, and no one's doubting how good he is as a regular season quarterback. But the playoffs are a different level of intensity. And some players can thrive in the playoffs. Some players just struggle a little bit.
Yeah. And you referenced Kansas City, and we've talked about the Chiefs a couple times already in this podcast, but and maybe this is me just being an Arizona Cardinal homer, but I can't stress how big of a deal them getting Hollywood Brown is to that Chiefs offense. Granted, we all know the situation going on with Rashee Rice, so who knows what that's going to look like for their roster situation in the future. But Hollywood Brown, people forget he can be a legit threat on the offensive side, and pairing him up with Kelsey and the rest of the receivers, because I think slowly the Chiefs started figuring out which receivers they can rely on a little more. And I mean, they throw it a lot to their backs too, which causes another issue for defenses trying to figure out this offense. I can't stress how big of a deal this deal could end up being for the Kansas City Chiefs. More specifically, I can't stress how big of a deal it will be for defenses trying to figure out this Chiefs offense if Hollywood Brown can be that elite receiver that I truly think he can reach with having Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback.
Well, think about it. He had 1,000 yards in the Ravens offense. I don't think the Ravens have had a 1,000-yard receiver since Hollywood Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with Greg Roman, who hardly wanted to throw the ball. They threw the ball maybe 20 times a game. So you put him with Patrick Mahomes and you put him with Andy Reid and you put him with Travis Kelce. I mean, I feel like we're gonna be talking a year from now about Hollywood Brown getting a 4-year, $100-something million deal, either with the Chiefs or with some other team because of how big of a season he had.
It's scary, man. Your Chiefs just keep finding a way to rebuild, and I don't like it, man. Y'all need to stop.
Well, you're not gonna like this mock draft. Then you're not gonna like who I have the Chiefs taken.
Well, I mean,
that's all I'm gonna say.
We might as well just get into your mock draft. I mean, you got some interesting picks that I saw. I only looked really at the top 10, but I'd love to get your opinion on the whole first round that you have here. Let's get this pulled up here. Here's Dawson's 2.0 mock draft that we have, at least that we've shown on this podcast. I think the first 4 stayed the same, if I remember right.
Flip flop May and Daniels. I had Daniels going 2 last
Let's
time.
see if I can
And
find
I'm
your.
realizing looking at my mock now, I made a mistake with the Chargers taking 2 offensive tackles. My bad. Probably won't have them taking 2 offensive tackles in the first round, but live
Happens.
and learn. But do you want me to just highlight the whole thing, or?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, you can start with the top 5, and I mean, obviously, I want to know why. I mean, a lot of people are switching from Drake May to Jaden Daniels, anyways. But why do you got JJ McCarthy going to the Vikings?
I think once the Vikings made that trade with the Texans a couple weeks ago to get that extra first rounder, I think it's inevitable that they trade up into the top 5 to get their quarterback. People are in love with JJ McCarthy and what he can provide for a team. And I'm not going to lie, over the last month or two, like I've started to like him more as a prospect. I think he could do good in the NFL. He's pretty athletic, pretty mobile. Can make all the throws in the short and intermediate routes, which is good. Um, and he's a winner, which I don't know if gets stressed enough in college. Some people just so. No offense to my boy Mahomes, but Mahomes coming out of college did not know how to win. They won 6 games and 5 games this year at Texas Tech.
Lost the
So
game 66-10 once.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, to your Cyclones. I get reminded of that every time I see my buddy.
Oh yeah, Joel Lanning with 5 rushing touchdowns, man. Never have I seen a quarterback score 5 rushing touchdowns in this era of college football.
Right. But I don't know. And McCarthy's the last first round grade quarterback that I thought could go in the top 5. So yeah, I just thought that was and I think Kevin O'Connell really wants his franchise quarterback locked up. And if McCarthy's anything, you pair him with Justin Jefferson, and I think that offense could be really good.
Well, do you see him starting at day 1 then?
I think Sam Darnold's going to start probably the first half of the season, and I think we could see McCarthy slowly implemented into the offense.
So you don't see a Alex Smith kind of thing where they will just deal with Sam Darnold the whole year?
No, because I think Sam Darnold's a little bit worse player than Alex Smith was.
That's a good point. Sorry, no, Alex Smith. That was a little disrespectful. Not gonna lie. But no, I mean, if they're winning games, if he's not playing terrible, I don't know why you can just switch. You know what I mean. I'm not saying that Sam Darnold's gonna do that, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, go ahead.
You got any other questions in the top 10? Any people that stand out to you?
Do you not think the Arizona Cardinals are going to trade out?
Well, now I don't know if this is smoke, but sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. Their asking price is 3 number ones to move up.
I think that's true.
I don't think anyone's going to be willing to trade with the Cardinals if it's for 3 first.
So I talked to my brother about that. What is your thoughts on that asking price? I think, and maybe again, I got my Cardinals hat on. I think that for who Marvin Harrison is scouted to be, because if the Bears didn't need a quarterback, they would be drafting Marvin Harrison number 1. I truly believe that. I know that we talked about Caleb Williams is a once in a generation type of prospect where you can't pass it up. But if the Bears had, again, there's no way that this would have happened. But let's say they had a talent close to Mahomes-esque, all pro, legit. There's no way that you can put Caleb over him. They're taking Marvin number 1. That's how I feel it would be. So I think giving up 3 first rounds to get Marvin Harrison, if you're a team that already has a set quarterback, is not a bad deal.
Right. What the Cardinals are doing is the smartest thing. They're using that pick as leverage for a team that wants Marvin or a team that wants a quarterback and is like, hey, we really need to get up to number 4 to get the guy we want. Because the draft is crazy. We've seen some crazy draft picks in the top 5. What if one of the top 3 quarterbacks falls out and they don't go 1, 2, 3? Then a team like Minnesota, then a team I could see Vegas trading up and giving up multiple first round picks to get their quarterback, because I don't know if they're really bought into Aiden O'Connell long term. But I think the Cardinals are doing the right thing, leveraging that pick. I do think at the end of the day, though, I don't think a team's going to trade 3 first rounders. So I do think Marvin's going to go with the Cardinals, which is still a great pair. You pair Kyler Murray with Marvin Harrison. Now we're really starting to see what Kyler's going to look like with some actual weapons, first time in a year or two. So I really like the pick for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen the Cardinals potentially taking an offensive lineman at this position. If they have the pick and pass on Marvin, that will be a terrible mistake for this team. And I mean, I think there's some other great wide receivers, and I mean, you got two other ones going in the top 10 with Malik Neighbors and Roman. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce his last name.
Odunze.
Adunze from the Huskies of Washington. No, you're giving Chicago another receiver. Thoughts on that? I mean, there's like you said, they're kind of going the Texans route. They're stacking that wide receiver room at this point if they end up going with Adunze.
Yeah. So for this pick, I either thought the Bears could go with wide receiver. I think they go best or second best defensive player available. With Dallas Turner off the board, I think this makes the pick for Chicago a little bit easier. I think they would have went with Dallas Turner had he been there. Don't be shocked if the Bears trade this pick. If they trade down, get more assets, because I think the Bears only have 4 or 5 draft picks. It just happens to be that they have the number 1 overall pick and the number 9 overall pick. So really trying to solidify that defense. But at the end of the day, Rome Odunze is a top 10 player. And if you can give another receiver to Caleb Williams, and now you have a receiving core of Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore, I think you're setting up Caleb Williams to have the most success year one.
So I didn't even really consider that your trade to get JJ McCarthy for the Vikings involves the Chargers. What are your thoughts on the Chargers moving down? Because obviously you have them moving down to 11. Is there a reason behind that? Like what's your thoughts on that?
So, because of all the dead cap the Chargers are going to take this year, I don't think the Chargers are going to be as good as people are saying. So I think
I'm gonna go on record, and I think they're gonna be one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL.
right,
That's a hot take, but
I don't think so. And obviously, like I look at my mock draft now, I messed up. Haven't taken 2 offensive tackles. If I had to flip flop, I'd have the Chargers taking A.D. Mitchell, and then I'd have the Bills taking Ladd McConkey, because I think both teams need a receiver. But if Marv is on the board at 5, which I don't think he will, I think the Chargers stick and pick. Outside of that, though, if you're able to get 2 first-round picks this year in this draft to get better, and you can get an offensive tackle to help Justin Herbert, and then you can get him another receiver to help Justin Herbert, I think that's what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. So I think if I'm trying to remember the trade, I think it was just pick 5 for pick 11 and pick 23. There may have been a third or fourth that I also threw the Chargers, but I think that was a general gist of the trade.
yeah. And then one of the things I see that it's not sticking out like a sore thumb, but Brock Bowers drops all the way to 18, which I feel like I've seen him move down a lot since college football ended on the draft boards. What are your thoughts on Brock Bowers? Do you think he can be what everybody originally may have thought? Because I seemed like at one point it was like he's going to be a top 5 pick, and now you got him kind of all the way close to 20.
Right, and I do think Brock Bowers is a top 10 talent in this draft. I think the issue is positional value. When you look at other positions, teams just value them more. Quarterback, obviously, being one of them. Wide receiver, offensive tackle, edge rusher, and corner are kind of the positions that are kind of in front of him right now and that I think are more valuable positions. I think if Bowers on the board at Cincinnati, I think you take him in a heartbeat. If you're able to pair Brock Bowers with Jamar Chase, and who knows if T. Higgins is going to be there this fall, but with Joe Burrow, I think you're setting up Joe Burrow to have the most success this year that he had since he made the Super Bowl. So I really like the pick for Bowers. Not only is he a really good pass catcher, he's a really good blocker too. So this was one of my favorite picks of the draft.
If he would get drafted before 18, where do you kind of see him going?
Another team that I really like for him to go to is the Colts. Okay. But I just think the Colts have so much need at corner that I think they have to take a corner. Outside of that, the Jets is probably the earliest I could see him going. I just have the Jets being responsible and taking in an offensive lineman. If the Jets could easily do the irresponsible thing and take Brock Bowers, and that'd be cool. But when Aaron Rodgers ends up getting hurt in week 7 or 8, knock on wood, he doesn't. But if it happens, you're gonna be like, how'd that happen? It's like, well, we had an opportunity to take our tackle or our guard, and we took a flashy skill position guy. So that's why I have the Jets. I have them being more responsible this draft, but who knows what
It's
that
the Jets.
organization is going to do.
It's
Yeah,
the
they're going to
Jets.
jet. Just like the
Um,
Clippers are going to clip, the Jets are going to jet.
Amen. Amen to that. I like the pick with Kool-Aid McKinstry to go into the Eagles. The Eagles need to revamp that defense a little bit. Other things that I noticed on your mock draft is that, one, I'll talk about the final quarterback in the first round going to the Raiders in a second, but you mentioned that I wasn't going to like who the Kansas City Chiefs ended up taking, and I'm telling you, if Xavier Worthy is on the Kansas City Chiefs in the fall, uh, man, we might as well just wrap it up. The season's over. Everybody's playing for second again.
Yeah, so I've been doing mock drafts since first week of March, really since after the combine, and every time I get to 32, it's been Lad McConkey, Lad McConkey, Lad McConkey. I decided to switch it up, and I saw Worthy was on the board, and I'm like, you know what? If you could pair Xavier Worthy with Hollywood Brown, and knock on wood, Rasheed Rice isn't suspended the whole year. We don't know what's going on with that situation. But if you're able to have those three as your wide receivers, that's a huge jump up from what they had last year, compared to
Oh,
Rice and a bunch of meh.
dude, this Chiefs team just keeps getting scarier and scarier as days go on, and they get Xavier Worthy, man. That might be one of the better picks in this first round. And then finally, obviously, I want to talk about Detroit trading their 29th pick to the Raiders for Penix. I'm kind of curious on why you have this move happening. Because I feel like teams that are looking for a quarterback, if they haven't drafted one after the 10th pick, they aren't really actively looking for one. Raiders, I feel like, are looking for one actively, obviously. Uh, so why trade at the 29th pick if you can't maybe give up less? I guess I don't know what you put in the whole trade details for this, but
Mm-hmm.
why not try to see if you can trade in the second round and get Penix then? Or do you not think he'll be available by then?
So there's a couple parts with this. I think the Raiders trade up back in the first round because compared to first round picks get fifth year options, which means the team has one more year of control over the guy they drafted. So I think the rate, especially with quarterbacks, you want to have that fifth year option to really make a
That's a good
decision
point.
if this is our franchise guy. I think in this trade, I only had the Raiders giving up their second this year, their fourth this year, and a third or fourth next year. So not a huge trade up, and they're able to get their guy in Michael Penix. The other spot I saw Penix going to that I tried to make work, but this team didn't have the draft picks was Seattle. I really wanted Penix to go to Seattle, go back to the Northwest. Um, but I just couldn't make the trade happen. The next pick that Seattle has is like in the 80s, so I couldn't make it work. But
Could you see them
I don't know.
trading back? Or do
I
you
could
think
see the
they're going
Seahawks trading
OC?
back, but there would be a team that thinks one of the top 10 guys is falling, and the way I had the board fall, it just didn't happen.
Mhm.
So I think Seattle just sticks some picks and they take Jackson Powers Johnson. I really like Penix. I think his pro day really bumped his stock up. He's way more athletic than I thought he was. I think he ran in the four. Let me get this right. 4.6s for quarterbacks, which is one of the faster quarterbacks in this draft class. Um,
Do you have any worry
Not that
about
everyone's
his
a draft nerd, but there's a website out there called RAS, Relative Athletic Score, and it grades players 1 through 10. 10 meaning like they're peak, like they're the best athlete in their draft class. 1 being they're like one of the worst athletes that the site has ever seen. Penix was a 9.75, which is I think the second highest quarterback. I'm actually trying to pull up his 40 right now. But
do you have any worries about his injury history though?
a little bit. Honestly, if it wasn't for his injury concerns, I think Penix could be a top 15 guy no matter what. I think Penix is that good. Um, I think there is obviously some concerns. That's why teams are knocking him this far down the board. I just think if the Raiders are sitting there at the back end of the first round, like we can go get our guy, and we can maybe sit him the first half of the season behind O'Connell, and then play him. I think that's a no doubt move, and I think that's what the Raiders want to do. I think the Raiders want to compete this year. Excuse me. They had a good team last year, but I think this move could potentially put them over the edge in the near future.
Yeah, I I like the pick. Where do you kind of see any of the remaining quarterbacks that would be on the board heading in the second round? Do you think Bo Nix is a guy that people actually still want? I think he could potentially be a sneaky, like, good player that like could sit behind someone for a year, or even like if an injury happens, sneak in and actually take over a franchise. But what are your thoughts on Bo Nix or just any of the quarterbacks that would be remaining in the second round if your first round mock draft goes the way that it shows?
So there's two spots I think Bo Nix could realistically go to. One of them being the Rams, because you got to have a plan for when Stafford's done. The other one is the Broncos, because I think Jared Stidham would be starting week 1, and I'm not a Broncos fan. I'm actually a Broncos hater, but even I can't be that mean and have the Broncos starting Jared Stidham week 1. So I think the Broncos could take him in the second round. I don't think Nix is going to go first round.
Yeah.
I liked what he did this past year at Oregon, but I just don't think.
Do you think the age has a little bit to do with it?
Yeah, same thing with Penix. If Penix wasn't 24 at the start of the year, 25 or whatever he is, I think Penix obviously goes higher. But I just don't think Bo Nix really flashed as much as the other 5 quarterbacks I have that are going in the first round. So I could see him going second round to either the Rams, Broncos. Outside of that, yeah, I don't really know. I know there's rumors about the Cowboys losing Dak. Could Bo Nix be a possibility there? Who knows?
Well, they have Trey Lance.
But it sounds like if the rumors I've seen, if they're interested in a quarterback this year, they must think Trey Lance is the worst quarterback to ever step foot on the football field.
Well, I mean, okay, if he hasn't played at this point anywhere,
yeah, there's a reason.
There's a reason. And again, sometimes that happens. I mean, the Bears did it with Trubisky. It's better to realize what you did and cut your losses now than
what the Cardinals did with Rosen.
Yes. Like what not saying again, this makes me seem like I hate Justin Fields. But they kind of saw the writing on the wall. If they wanted to get better, I feel like they needed to get Caleb Williams for Chicago, so they cut their losses, and now I feel like they're set up better for a brighter future than they were 6 months ago.
Kind of like what the Patriots are doing. They cut their losses with Mac Jones. They're like, this is not going to make us better by having him on the team. Let's trade him, let him go be a backup, and either we roll out Bailey Zappi week 1, or we take the third best quarterback in the draft in either Daniels.
Do you think that they'll not? Is there any situation you see them not taking a quarterback or even trading?
So, if you want my honest answer, I don't think the Patriots should take quarterback this year. The team is too bad, like everywhere. I think honestly, I'd take Marvin Harrison and wouldn't even think twice, and then take your guy next year. Either take Quinn Ewers, take Shadur Sanders, take Jackson Dart, like all those guys in the next class. But I feel like the Patriots are gonna take their franchise guy this year, which I don't necessarily hate. It's just I hate the situation that the quarterback is going to go into, because that's the thing with quarterbacks is 90% of their success is based on the situation around them. That's why I think Caleb Williams is going to do so well. Not only is he the no doubt number 1 pick, but he's also going into the best situation we've ever seen a number 1 pick go to.
And CJ Stroud is almost like an outlier for that, because like no one really knew what that Houston team was going to look like.
Right. I think me and you both had the Texans finishing last in the AFC South.
I was at one point thinking I was going to get Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams as a Cardinals fan.
Yeah.
And
now you get Marvin Harrison and J.C. Latham.
Yay. But no, I'm interested in this draft because there's so much that I feel like actually could happen. I think number 1 and number 2, I don't think those 2 teams are definitely going to be trading out from that spot. I think Caleb's going 1. The question on whether or not Daniels or May is going 2, literally every other day it seems like one person's going one way, one person's going another. What in your opinion makes May the ideal prospect for the Commanders, or are the Commanders actually swinging and missing with this pick, and that's just what you think they're going to go with?
So when I first started looking at prospects and first started doing mock drafts, I really liked what Jaden Daniels did. And this is me. I'm not knocking Daniels when I'm saying this. I just am I'm concerned about his weight at the next level. He's 6'4", but he's only 210 pounds. Like, is he going to be able to take a full season of hits behind a pretty bad offensive line that the Patriots have. Um, so I think he might be set up for failure his first year if he goes to New England or if he goes to any one of these teams. With May, I think I've been talking about May same breath as Caleb Williams, where it's like these guys are the first two quarterbacks off the board. People's opinions kind of changed over the last season. May didn't have that good of a season, and Daniels obviously won the Heisman, so he's got everyone's attention. But
I think it's similar to what you said about the NFL. May wasn't in a great situation compared to the other two.
no, May did. He had a lot of good weapons the year before, but this past year, his highest weapon that's going to be drafted is Tez Walker, who might be a 4th or 5th round pick. Who knows? Whereas Jane Daniels, I don't want to poo poo on weapons too much, but he's throwing to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, who are 6th in my mock draft and 20th in my mock draft. So that goes to show you the weapons that both those teams had around their respective quarterbacks. But I also just like May a little bit more. He's not as mobile as Daniels, but he's still fairly mobile for a quarterback that big. 6'5", honestly reminds me a lot of Josh Allen. Like, keep seeing that comp come up. I don't think he's like nearly the runner that Allen is, but the comps are with the cannon arm. He can make any throw, on script, off script. I just really like May, and I think the Commanders have made some decent moves this offseason. I think they could be not dangerous because they'll be okay next year. They might win 6 games.
That NFC East, anyways, is kind of not a train wreck, but it's just unpredictable usually. I feel like the Eagles were supposed to be the heavy favorite, and they didn't perform as well as we thought they were going to. And I mean, speaking of the Eagles, we talked about teams that kind of cut their losses. Do you think it was a good move for them to trade for Kenny Pickett?
I don't hate the move.
Okay.
Because every team needs a decent backup quarterback. Because God forbid your quarterback goes down with an injury. I hate bringing up the Chiefs. Actually, I don't hate bringing up the Chiefs so much. But them having Chad Henne those last year when they won the Super Bowl, and then the year they lost to the Bucks, they don't make the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl without Chad Henne and the veteran presence he's able to bring. And just
Baker Mayfield may have made a Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Which,
like,
imagine
if
that.
Chad Henne doesn't roll out on that 4th down or 3rd down and throws a Tyreek, we could be talking about an entirely different scenario with the Chiefs right now.
That would be
Baker
crazy.
being in an AFC title game. And Baker still being on the Browns. The alternate universe that is if Chad Henne didn't step in.
Like, I don't think people realize how big of a deal that would have changed the NFL. Because Browns wouldn't have traded for Watson.
Texans wouldn't have Stroud.
Holy crap. That's just
Stroud could have been a Panther. And then Bryce Young, maybe Bryce Young's a Raider. Maybe Bryce Young is, I don't even know who was the top 5 pick last year, but
wow.
It's crazy how stuff can change just based on one play.
You Chiefs, man. You guys are the gatekeepers of the NFL at this point.
Just like the Patriots. We're going for 6.
It's crazy. I mean, 6 with just this this era, or 6 Super Bowls.
6 in this era would be tough because that means they need to win 3 more.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I thought you guys were just going for 6 Super Bowls in general. Either way, dude, I'm telling you, if the season started, let's say this mock draft goes the way it is, even with the suspension probably upcoming for Rice, I don't think there's anyone I would confidently overly confident take over the Chiefs right now.
Well, Vegas disagrees with you. Vegas has the Chiefs as the 2nd highest favorite.
Is it the 49ers?
It is the 49ers.
But that's assuming has Brandon Ayuk's is he going to be back?
Who knows? Real quick, off subject, kind of, but if Ayuk gets traded and he gets to a new team, wouldn't be shocked if it's either the Bills that really want him or if the Lions. Same goes for T. Higgins. I'd be like those 2 teams, they realize that the receivers at the back end of the first, they're okay, but they're not going to be as good as T. Higgins or Ayuk. Trade their first rounder and give him a new contract.
If
I
they
think could really help out both teams.
if he's not gone by the draft, the first round will determine. I feel like the first round pick that the 49ers make might determine whether or not he's going to be back or not. Because I
Right.
think they could go receiver if they don't feel like Ayuk is going to be there.
Right. I think the reason I have them going with a guard here is because I think the interior of their line was the reason they lost the Super Bowl.
Yep.
But if
Chris
they
Jones
lose
should have gotten
Ayuk,
Super Bowl MVP.
yeah.
I'll die
If
on a
they
hill.
would have lost Ayuk, then it's a different story. Are we talking about Troy Franklin going here? Are we talking about Lad McConkey? Are we talking about Xavier Worthy? Who, like, a lot of different options that opens up for the Niners. Because in the back of their mind, they're realizing, okay, after this year, we're going to have to pay Brock Purdy probably $55 million a year to be the quarterback for the Niners.
You don't think he'd be the type of guy that would take a pay cut?
No.
It's one of those things where it's like, you want to believe that. Like, even with Mahomes, I mean, money talks, though. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, I used to be like that, and then I think, let me put myself in their shoes. You want me to take millions less just for them to sign some, like, bumps? I respect what Tom Brady did over the years with the Patriots.
And that's why I was talking about that, because it's like,
but like, unless you're like, I guess with Mahomes it's a little different because he has that security because he's got that 10-year deal that doesn't expire for 8 more years. But if you're any other quarterback, you have no idea how long your prime is going to be. You got to take every dime that you get, especially a guy like Lamar or Josh Allen who are on the run and are constantly moving and they're scramblers. And who knows? It takes one fluke injury.
Purdy more, because who knows? I'm not saying that his is a fluke run, but like, who knows when it's going to end? Again, at the same time, he was the last pick of the draft. I'm an Iowa State fan, but like, no one was expecting him to get this far. So who knows how long he expects this? Of course, he in the mindset of that he should have, because he's a quarterback who wants to win. This run's going to last as long as Mahomes is in the NFL. But is that reality? Who knows? So, yeah, I guess that makes sense why he would want to take as much money as possible. And living in San Francisco is rough.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, you live in Florida, and you can kind of take a couple pennies off because, like, no income tax.
San Francisco is you breathe and you're giving them like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Well, think about it. All these players, like Mahomes, when he signed that $500 million, he just picture he loses half. He gets $250 million because Uncle Sam wants his pretty penny. And then it's like, well, I gotta spend 15% to my agent, and I gotta spend 5% to my trainer, and then I have closing like. When these players sign these huge deals, I want people to realize like they don't get they get about half.
Yeah.
And that's before they pay their agent or any of that.
Thank you, Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
And imagine living in San Francisco.
Right.
Because not that Kansas City is like this amazing place to live, which I do believe it is. That's one of the places where it's like, if I do live outside the state, Kansas City would probably be number one on my list. But like, still, you don't want to take if you're getting paid a certain amount, but you're not actually getting paid that. It's a little frustrating for a quarterback, or anybody. So, yeah. I mean, anything else on the mock draft that you wanted to cover or wanted people to keep an eye on? I mean, we'll probably have another one next week or the week after. I know we'll probably do not a first round. Maybe we'll do like first 15 or first 10 picks. For a podcast where we both give our picks out, and then maybe depending on my schedule, we could live stream maybe the first 10 picks of the NFL draft, just give our little recap, similar to what I don't know if you saw what Max and I did for the first for Selection Sunday or whatever.
Yeah,
but yeah, anything else?
My favorite pick of my mock draft is Cooper DeJean going to Green Bay, because I could just picture Packers fans in Lambeau Field if Coop gets a pick or something, go Coop,
oh yeah,
and just going crazy. Plus the position of need, they need corners, and I think you pair him with that Packers defense, I think that's a match made in heaven. So give me Cooper DeJean to the Packers.
And granted, their pick is before the Lions anyways, but that's why I was shocked that you had the Lions trading trading that pick away to the Raiders. I thought that he'd fit well in Detroit, but if he's going to get picked around 25 anyways, there's no point in Detroit keeping that pick. So the trade, in my opinion, makes more sense after realizing that you have Cooper DeJean going to Green Bay. Cooper DeJean is going to be a great NFL pro.
Yeah, I think he wowed a lot of people with this pro day on Monday. They're like, huh? He ran a 4.4?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so he doesn't need to just play safety, like everyone keeps saying, or nickel corner. He can be a boundary corner and guard your best receiver. Or be your punt returner, or be your kick returner. Yeah. It wasn't a fair catch. I will go.
Hey, no. You Iowa fans are not allowed to say that wasn't a fair catch.
It wasn't.
And then make fun of UConn fans for the obvious moving screen.
That was a moving screen, though.
No,
that wasn't a fair catch.
I saw him move.
You saw him doing this. Hold on, I'm not even in screen right now.
Oh yeah,
that ain't a fair catch. Get out of here.
Above the shoulder.
Get out of here.
I'm completely kidding. No,
yeah, I'm not. It wasn't a fair catch. I'm still mad.
Okay.
I'm still like heated about that.
Okay, I don't remember that. What would have changed the season if that game would have went differently?
We would have been 10th when we lost to Michigan in the Big Ten, and then we would have played. I don't even. What
was the Rose Bowl was the playoff game this year?
Yeah, we would have probably played like Oregon or something. And probably still gotten spacked. Like nothing would have changed, but it would have. 11 wins cooler than 10.
That's a good point. I wouldn't know.
And not losing the Floyd. I didn't want to lose the pig.
That's true. I don't know what 10 wins is like, man. So I guess I shouldn't be talking.
It's different this year. Hey, Hawkeyes are winning 11 games this year. I'm calling my shot right now.
Winning 11
Put me on flaming cold takes, flaming hot takes.
11 games. Is that
11 games,
including postseason or is just regular season?
Probably including postseason. But I know we'll talk college football later on. In the year, maybe in August. The only game I see Iowa really losing for sure is Ohio State. Outside of that, it's like Washington, but Washington lost all the guys to the draft. Then it's like Michigan State, Wisconsin.
Keep sleeping.
Keep sleeping on who?
Nobody. Oh. I'm just saying keep sleeping.
Team in lames.
See, I would say what I call Iowa City, but yeah. I don't want to have to put a notice that this podcast is not clean anymore. Yeah, like let's be honest. I would say it. I just don't want people that usually listen to this, who may be listening with younger people, hearing what I would call.
What is it? What is it? I'm just fine. It's all fun and jokes.
Until someone gets their feelings hurt, which is usually me by the end of August.
You hurt. Yeah, you got me going with that fair catch baloney. But I don't know how this got out on a tangent, but I think it was just me talking about Coop going to the Packers and then you poking the bear with the fair catch.
Hey, it's just another year that Iowa gets a first round pick and TJ Tampa will be a second rounder, I guess.
You guys had a first rounder last year.
I know, but it's just one.
Yeah. You just wait. Just wait till we have 2 next year.
Yeah, just wait until Rocco wins the Heisman this year.
Yeah. Well, if that actually happens.
If Rocco wins the Heisman, Iowa State would have had the most bizarre, chaotic, out of nowhere season ever.
You could, if I'm Rocco, I hand deliver my Heisman to Hunter Deckers, and I say thank you, because if it wasn't for your little allegation with gambling, then I wouldn't have this. So here, you can have it too.
Did I ever tell you that we accidentally put someone with a Hunter Deckers jersey on the video board? So we have a history. We have a history of like our quarterbacks actually wearing number 12, or like we have a lot of quarterbacks that have worn 12 in the past. Mm-hmm. Like Sam Richardson being one of them. And Sam Richardson was a starter for like 2.5, 3 years almost. And so you see a lot of those jerseys, not with Richardson on the back, just number 12 before NIL was a thing. And so we saw one of those. The guy was dancing, so we put him on the video board. He started dancing, turns around, and actually has Deckers in plain text, obvious to see. And we're like, oh no.
Switch camera.
Yeah, it was.
Camera 7.
But I was like, just when you thought like everybody forgot about him, because it was in like October, November, if I remember correct, when it happened. And I think we were losing, so it was like, really, like this just had to happen. And I was like, oh well.
I'll still see, like, on a game day, I'll still see a random Spencer Petras jersey. I'm not even kidding. I have seen
Are they
little
the
kids.
banana ones?
No, they're like the actual like black ones.
Okay.
I'll like double take them. Like, there's no way someone's still wearing a Spencer Petras jersey.
Okay, I need your and I know that we're kind of over time, but and not even talking about the NFL. I need your opinion. I don't know if you saw Iowa State's post on April Fools, the football jerseys.
Oh, I think I did. Wait, maybe I saw the athletics one.
Okay, so you saw the athletics
mascot
one. So here, I want to get your opinions on these. So, and I don't know if they realized it was April 1st when this happened, but because they shared the mascot one, and then
yeah, I did see that one.
Then Cyclone Football decided to do this, and just no caption. One of the photos doesn't even load. Like it was an obvious.
I love that. That's crazy that one of them doesn't even load. That's wild.
And like obviously these are like the sides of like the.
Oh, that looks like a Chiefs jersey.
That's I think that's where they're going. It's Chiefs jerseys with thicker stripes. But like these were the three that they posted, and then this obviously. But they posted this on April Fools, and like obviously you can see the number in the background, all those things. And someone actually came up with like let's see if I can find it. What they would like potentially look like. And low key, I kind of like these, man. I need your since you're not an Iowa State
non-Iowa opinion.
So Iowa fan, you probably hate them. Obviously, you hate these.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a fan of the black ones, but I like the white ones, honestly, because it reminds me of like the Chiefs away ones, and the red ones remind me of the home ones.
I love these. This guy ended up posting like, here, let me see if I can find them. Like a 16-ish different versions of like what the jerseys would look like in different formats. He went all in on this. Like,
oh, is that like, a blue? Okay, hold on.
The navy.
That last row. No, give me the last row. I think the best, unbiased aside, the best Iowa State logo was the blue one. Was the blue logo they had to like, I don't even know when you guys changed it. But that blue bird with this actual cyclone going around it.
I need these. I need these back. These would be amazing.
Those would be clean. I like the blue one though.
I will not comment on that because I, for one, don't like the blue. I like the old logo. Bring it back, but make the blue black. Since we've went all in on the black, that's the thing. I kind of like these. I don't get the point of them. Again, these are all just mocks. Who knows if these are actually real? Right. A lot of it's just speculation of like what that fourth photo is. But like, I kind of like these. These are clean, but there's no like, again, similar to the black unis, no representation of what Iowa State is. I will say if they added gold to this, this would be exactly what Iowa State's original colors were because they were black, silver, and gold. These are disgusting. So we're not like those. These two are. We're not bringing back Ronald McDonald.
I don't hate those.
I love the gray ones.
I remember, didn't you guys wear the grays against Iowa one year?
Yes. That was the year that we went to. Did we go to triple overtime? I know we went to overtime. I can't remember if it was triple overtime or if it was just one or two.
I think I was at that game. Now that I say it.
Yeah, you were in the end zone. Do you remember that? You bought tickets
at the
last moment.
I do, because it was the first time I've ever been to the Souk Up section.
Yeah, David Montgomery absolutely trucked Josie Jewell, and then Akram Wadley had that amazing like reception or whatever.
He had the screen catch.
Yeah.
Hold on, I got it somewhere.
I love these Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, 2017.
2017.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, these Georgia Bulldog mock-ups, clean. But no, if they come out with those, I swear. Do you like the Stormtrooper one on the top right? That's what we've been calling them, is the Stormtrooper look.
As if you had like a white helmet, maybe.
We've
would need
done
to
that.
see-
We've done that before. White helmet, and then the iState logo is a black stencil.
Yeah, if you had a white helmet and white, like if you just went full white out, then that would be sick. But if you
These
had
are
like
what
black pants or black helmet, that wouldn't.
these are what the black uni should look like.
Yeah,
Actually,
I
like,
agree.
I'm gonna sound like a boomer, but like, I like the black uniforms. I do like. I think they pop more with the Iowa State, like, red and cardinal and gold incorporated in them a little more. That's just my opinion. If I had to pick 4 though, it would be these 3 right here. The home with the white collar, away, and then the black ones with the Iowa
I could
State
agree with
colors,
that.
and then have
One
this
game a year be the alternate, like
yes,
throwback.
this. Granted, the fact that they did Jack Trice uniforms last year makes me wonder what the like 4th image is. Obviously, if they're going to do like a more modern day look of that. But I just wanted to see what your opinions were on those. I think they look better than the ones that they have right now, but depending on who you talk to in my friend group, it's a polarizing debate. But they posted that on April Fool's Day. And from what I've been told, those are legit. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, come on.
Yeah, just wait one day or post it the day before.
And I don't know if they were doing it as a like, well, if people don't like these, we can just like trash
April
them.
Fools.
Yeah. But a lot of people were like, April Fool's jokes are supposed to be fun. But if this is a joke, I don't want to be a fan anymore because these are amazing.
I do, like I said, the shoulder patches, they remind me a lot of what, like when you go to Arrowhead and you see the Chiefs, like the red home uniforms. I do like that. That part is cool.
I mean, Iowa State's just known for copying other people's unis. I mean, we had the USC uniforms for the longest time. Now we're taking the Chiefs. Doesn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if we took the Pittsburgh Steelers uniforms and then made them black and yellow and wore them,
Yeah. We're not getting rid of that design, bro. You'll never see Iowa.
It's clean, dude. It's clean. I need you
except
guys to bring
the
back
random times we'll throw like all gold or gold and black. Like the ones we wore against Minnesota.
The ones with the where the eyes were inside the number. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. I do know which.
Those were dope.
Yeah.
The ones that you guys wore against Ohio State were amazing.
Yes. The ones against Minnesota. Not this past year, but 2015 Minnesota.
Was that banana?
All black and the huge yellow letters. That was sick.
I love this year's.
This year's were okay. It would have been cool if they had gold pants. I'm going to be real. The black pants kind of ruined it for me.
Oh, I thought the black pants made it. I'm not going to lie.
Dude.
Your guys' banana look did not look good.
I liked when we went white tops and black jerseys or black bottoms for the first time ever against Penn State.
When's the last time that you guys have worn yellow helmets?
We have before. It's probably been like...
Because I think they need to go back. Like, bring them back for a game. I'd kill to see that.
I'm trying to figure it out. Yellow helmets? I'm not seeing any.
I know that they
did
recent. Like, yeah, they did like.
I've seen mock-ups of people making jersey designs, but nothing recent.
All right. Well, I'm not sure.
I did hear a rumor that Iowa was supposed to have white helmets last year for that Penn State game, but they just couldn't get them ordered in time.
I wonder why. I don't know if that would look good going up against someone that wears white helmets.
Right.
But not a bad idea from Iowa. I will say that. I do like that idea. But yeah, that's pretty much it that we have this week. I'm not sure how I think we talked for almost 20 minutes about jerseys in Iowa State and Iowa for a while, which I mean, hey, when it gets to the fall, we might have like a little segment or a separate podcast, not necessarily a separate podcast name, but just like 2 shows a week where one's NFL and then one's Cyhawk based if we want to do that. But yeah,
as long as I can hop on the college football one. I just want to talk my 2 cents about Iowa and then dip.
Might have to do that. I'll talk to Max about that. But we'll do some more mock drafts, talk next week, talk more about teams that we're looking forward to heading into the next season. And if more news about anything breaks, we'll try to cover that as well. It seems like we're finally starting to slow down a little bit when it comes to major news in the NFL. But with the draft coming up, that's just it's like false. It's like what we were in March, fall spring, where it was like, oh yeah, we've hit spring, snow
Mhm.
at the end of the month. That's how it usually happens. But for Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Beirman. We are the Sports Nerds here on the 515 Podcast Network. We'll be back next week for more NFL and NBA because we'll do a Hardwood Convos episode as well. Just talking about the playoffs. I mean, a lot of matchups have been set. Play-in games are starting to get finalized. It's a great time of year for the NBA, but for the NFL, still the off season, getting ready for the draft, which is still an exciting time. So for Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Beirman. We are the Sports Nerds signing off.